Today we're exploring the concept of democracy under the topic of civics and citizenship. We're going to walk through the processes that exist to maintain Australia's representative democracy.
Before we get started, let's address why it's important to study civics and citizenship. To do that, we need to understand what civics and citizenship means.
According to the Australian curriculum, civics is defined broadly as a body of knowledge, skills and understandings relating to the organisation and working of society, including Australia's political and social heritage, democratic processes, government, public administration and judicial system. This definition can be extended to include local, regional and global perspectives.
Citizenship is the state of being a citizen of social, religious, political or community groups, locally, nationally and globally, which carries with it both rights and responsibilities, duties and privileges, and which is guided by social values and encouragement of active participation.
In the Australian curriculum, citizenship incorporates three components: civil, which refers to your rights and responsibilities, political participation and representation, and social values and community involvement. In its application in schools, citizenship provides opportunities for students to engage in activities as a member of a group, to address problems and issues for themselves, and positively influence social outcomes that are relevant to their lives now and in the future.
As an Australian citizen, you have the right to live in Australia permanently.
You have the right to vote.
You have the right to stand for an election.
Your social values and community involvement can include becoming a volunteer and being actively involved in community projects.
Studying civics and citizenship protects our way of life.
The rationale for civics and citizenship under the Australian curriculum states that the key to Australia's democracy is informed citizens who actively take part in their community in the context of liberal democratic values, institutions and systems of government. If Australian citizens are committed to and participate in civic life, our liberal representative democracy, built on a constitution and the supremacy of Parliament, will be sustained and thrive. Historically, it has been shown that without the participation of informed and responsible citizens, democracy is weakened and cannot function effectively. As part of being an active citizen, it's important to be informed about our system of government. Key principles and practices of our democracy include having a responsible government. This means the separation of legislative, executive and judicial powers.
Democratic institutions in place to ensure Australia has a transparent legal system and a free media. Equal opportunities and equal rights for all citizens is a fundamental aspect of our democracy and our individual rights and freedoms.
In Australia, our democracy is based on the principle of government for the people, by the people. Originating in ancient Greece, a direct democracy was a system of government literally run by the people.
The people would gather together and pass laws and decide policy on everything, from taxes to the conduct of war. Meetings were held every 9 days and more often if required.
Because the number of citizens in Australia is too large, direct democracy wouldn't work for us. We elect politicians to rule on our behalf. This is called a representative democracy.
Australia's system of representative government enables the people or citizens to vote the delegates to represent their views in Parliament. The purpose of our government is to protect the basic rights of individuals and have the community function smoothly. This is essential for democracy to work.
In representative democracy, the purpose of political parties is to develop policies and nominate members for election into Parliament in order to form government. Political parties are also responsible for representing different community interests in Parliament.
Once elected, the policies and responsibilities of the party in power covers many areas of community interest such as security, law and order, works and services, social and economic policies, and developing resources. To serve as an example, let's look at the two main political parties of Australia.
An example of recent policies implemented by the Australian Labor Party includes the Gillard government's decision to place a suspension on Australia's live cattle export to Indonesia. This policy was implemented in response to animal welfare concerns. More controversial is the introduction of carbon tax and the emissions trading scheme designed to reduce our carbon footprint.
Refugees and asylum seekers currently the hot topic in the media. Also controversial is Liberals' policy slogan, "Stop the boats."
In order to maintain our democracy, all Australian citizens over the age of 18 have the right and responsibility to vote.
Australia holds periodic elections to vote candidates into the upper and lower house. We will discuss this further in just a minute.
Now let's look at how your vote is counted using the preferential voting system. This short clip will explain how votes are counted and how our politicians are elected into power.
This basically means that votes don't get wasted. Let me explain. You have to put the candidates in the order that you like them best. We've just counted all the number 1 votes, and we still don't know who is elected. No candidate has an absolute majority. The candidate with the fewest votes is excluded. These votes are then transferred to the other candidates according to the second preferences shown by voters on these ballot papers. If still no candidate has an absolute majority, again the remaining candidate with the fewest votes is excluded, and these votes are transferred. This process will continue until one candidate has more than half the total votes cast and is declared elected.
In Australia, we have 150 electorates. A member from each electorate represents the people within that electorate and supports their views of their political party. The party with a majority in the House of Representatives forms government.
So the function of the House of Representatives is publicize and scrutinize government administrations, represent the people, and control government expenditure. As part of your democratic rights, you can speak to your local MP about a number of issues. These include action in Parliament, where, for example, you can raise your concern about a bill being passed in Parliament and even ask for a community inquiry into the bill. You can speak to your MP regarding actions within political parties and within the communities.
Now let's look at the role of the Senate.
Is the upper house and consists of 70 senators. Each state is guaranteed equal representation, 12 from each state and 2 from each territory. The senators also act as a house of review. Here, law must be passed by both houses, upper and lower.
It's important to know how the power of both the state and federal governments are governed. The Australian Constitution is a set of rules applicable to the running of the Australian government. For over 100 years, the Constitution has ensured the legal and political foundation of our country. It does this by stipulating how laws will be made, how they will be administered, and how disputes will be settled. Democratic forms of government provide the fairest method of governance to most people. The coupling of democracy with political liberalism provides for the protection of the rights of the individual, while the accountability of politicians to the electorate through the election process ensures that the government pays some attention to the will of the people.
By the greater champion of justice.
Democracy in Australia involves a well-established constitution, a well-established representative parliamentary process, and an engaged approach to government. It's grounded in liberal democratic values and a belief in civic duty. If Australian citizens are committed to and participate in civic life, our democracy will be sustained and strengthened.